your tomorrow today.
No consensus reached at meeting between federal government and oil workers. Deliberations continue today.
Kebbi State government steps up surveillance to address outbreak of avian influenza.
And pricing issues dominates meeting between federal government and cement manufacturers.
On Good Morning Nigeria, our focus is on checking the menace of fake news.
And the menace of fake news is becoming alarming. Now, last week alone, a private media house had to apologize to a former military head of state for what it termed spreading fake news about his comments to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, there was another such fake news which trended on the social media platforms. And that also insinuated that vehicles and trucks conveying food items and animals were blocked from moving to some southern part of the country, somewhere at Kara Jeba Mokwa area of Niger State. Meanwhile, police command as well as the state government had said that the story was false.
Quite agree with you, Claire. And yet another fake news was all over the media about a protest in the palace of the Emir of Ilorin, Kwara State. Now, in recent times, Claire, misinformation and disinformation have assumed disturbing dimensions and are having damaging implications on not just the psyche of Nigerians, but also on national security, economic development, and total well-being of the nation. And fake news is not just a very serious societal problem, it is a global problem. False, misleading, manipulated, and or fabricated news content have been disseminated to the public, of course, with some deceptive intention. Now, industry watchers insist that fake news is usually economically motivated, deliberate, and intentional. And they also believe in tackling the menace. There's need for participatory and transparent initiatives to aid better understanding of the impact of fake news, disinformation, as well as propaganda. Indeed, there are also suggestions that Nigerians should always consider the source of every information, of course, to be able to sift. Read beyond the headlines, read between the lines, check the author, and investigate all of the stories.
Absolutely, and there are very many ways that we can check out or fact check news sources or news contents. And of course, experts are also insisting that Nigerians should examine the evidence. Look out for fake images. There is something in every story, that gives it away. search for other sources, search for the links, ask professionals when you're in doubt, and of course, stay away from unverified news sources.
These people believe that the fact-checking organizations can also help address the ever-evolving menace of fake news. And this is our first topic today. We'll also look briefly at Nigeria's national patronage cash reward, Claire.
Indeed. I know when you hear cash reward, you know, at this point in time, I know. I know you're not alone. I can assure you, you're not alone. So we'll be looking at the patronage cash reward, and I think this is something you want to, you do not want to miss. You want to sit back and listen to it. I'm also eager to hear the details of this cash reward. And so I welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria, and it's a Tuesday's edition. As always, it's a good drink to start our day, your day, and of course it's the second episode in the week. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Welcome.
Right, I'm Victor as well, and I also welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you on the network service of the NTA. Newspaper Review is also on the lineup. For now, let's join Zinret Adingmun for the news. Hello, Zinret.
Hello, Victor and Claire. Good morning, and here's the morning news. A meeting with key players convened by the Ministry of State Petroleum Resources Oil to intervene between the National Association of Road Transport Owners (NATO) and major petroleum marketers is to continue, as no consensus was reached in the initial stage of the forum. Lukobiri says, though a commercial issue, government is determined to broker peace to mitigate further hardship on citizens. Now, fumigation and other surveillance on the newly detected H5N1, otherwise known as avian influenza, is ongoing in Kebbi State. This followed a breakout of the disease on a peacock farm in the state.
We are on it. We'll continue on active surveillance. The One Health component of the state are also working day and night to make sure that the human that are directly involved with this situation are being checked.
Zamfara State Police Command has confirmed the death of one of its personnel as two others got wounded following a terrorist attack on headquarters of Zurmi local government area of the state. The attackers also set ablaze many shops and houses in the town. A statement issued by the command's public relations officer, ASP Yazid Abubakar, however, said a fierce gun battle neutralized scores of terrorists, while some others escaped with gunshot wounds. Furthermore, in the statement, Zamfara State Commissioner of Police has deployed adequate manpower to the area while assuring people of the state of the command's relentless commitment to protecting their lives and properties. The police command enjoins people in the state to always tip the police off with timely and credible intelligence on activities of terrorists for prompt action. Manufacturers of cement have agreed to peg the price of each bag between 7,000 to 8,000 naira. This was after a meeting with the Minister of Works and his industry, trade and investment counterpart.
We agree that the Honorable Minister for Trade, Industry and Investment will seek some remedies from His Excellency Mr. President on the high cost of gas they complained.
For example, the gas that we use to power our kiln and power plants, was indexed to, or still indexed to dollars. So we were paying at the rate of 418, then 750. Today we are paying at over 1,514 naira a dollar.
A delegation of Nigeria's president has met with the top management of Ethiopian Airlines to address various trade-related issues. The delegation, directed by President Bola Tinubu, was led by the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, Ahmed Abubakar. The Ethiopian Airlines had raised a number of issues which could affect its operations and relations with Nigeria. After the meeting in Addis Ababa, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and International Relations, Shola Enikon Olaye, briefed State House correspondents.
Of course, I can't give you details of those. We will be reporting back to Mr. President faithfully, honestly, and dutifully, and then he will consider the report and give appropriate instructions to our aviation authorities.
Ethiopian Airlines is one of the largest carriers flying into Nigeria. And that's the news. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Victor after this break.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Newspaper review is up next.
And let's welcome Chukwudi Okole Ubuaja, and he's right here in the studio. Chukwudi, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Bright colors as usual. Victor,
yes.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I can be better.
Nagodi.
That the weather is still very hot.
Yeah, well, it's hot. Oh, actually, when it gets this hot, between February and April, you know the clouds are bearing rain.
I can't wait.
When it gets so hot, between February and April, expect the rain at any time. It's just that this the beginning of the north, you hear that Kogi, Okpila, all those Osun State, they're getting, scattered rain.
But even places where it usually rains at about this time, the River State, Port Harcourt, for instance, it's not raining.
I was surprised when I reached out to somebody in Lagos, and the person said, "Look, Lagos is hotter than any other place."
There's still the rain coming.
Yes, and I'm like, what? Lagos bounded by the Atlantic. And anyway, we have a lot to talk about this morning, and fortunately, I think we have enough time to do that. Chukwudi, Victor, you have two papers, so I think you should start off.
Okay, let's hit it off with the Daily Trust. We are just below the nameplate. You have three stories. Airfare to rise further as Jet A1 hits 1,530 naira. That's on page 22. Fuel queues in Abuja, Lagos. FG NATO meeting deadlocked. That's on page 23. Dangote, BUA, Lafarge Peg Cement, price at 8,000 naira. And the major headline here, food prices drop in Kano, Taraba, Kwara, Niger. With the riders, governments go after hoarders. Feed companies suspend mop-up. And hunger protest spreads to Ibadan. And then you have that, the picture story of the hunger protest. Towards the bottom of the Daily Trust, bandits kill 10 in Benue, 2 cops in Zamfara, burn houses in Niger. That's on page 6. And still on page 22, that's at the bottom of the Daily Trust, you have Nigeria's foreign investments shrink by 80% in 2023. On page 30, Niger probes pupils' use of abusive language in debate. That's on page 30, yeah? And finally on page 3, tongues wagging in Kano as popular TikToker released from jail. That's for the Daily Trust. But I also have the Vanguard. And above the nameplate, you have 92% of Nigerian workers in informal employment. That's according to the MBS. And then there is FG. Cement manufacturers agree on 7,000 naira / 8,000 naira for 50 kg bag. That's on page 8. The other paper says 8,000. Well, a little difference here. Edo 2024. APC youths, women take over secretariat. Want sack of SWC. That's on page 29. And on page 15, we have Wale Edun Cardoso, SEC management team visits WeWaste parents. And the major story here, the major headline, Forex crisis trigger major dislocations in 2024 budget with the riders. Benchmark exchange rates now half the value. Revenue expenditure estimates unrealistic, and analysts see profligacy pushing up deficit to 20 trillion naira. That's the major headline, and beside it you have Senate kicks against 17 trillion naira loss on tax waivers. That's on page 8. ECOWAS crisis, go on, turns down FG. ECOWAS invitation to speak on issue. That's on page 8 still. And electricity forex crisis, inflation push meter prices up by 80%. That's towards the bottom of the Vanguard. Thereabout, just suspected armed herders invade 3 Benue local governments, kill 10, injure others, 30 million naira. I'm not sure what that means here. Injure others, 30 million naira, not complete. Something is missing there. But with the rider, kidnappers abduct 9 passengers in Kogi, demand 30 million naira. That's now the complete one. That's why I misplaced somewhere there. So that's it for the Vanguard.
Okay, let's quickly look at the Punch newspaper, and again it's talking about the labor mobilizing for protest. Tanker driver strike triggers fuel queues. It comes with 2 riders there. Of course, the picture stories you see with the protesters with placards, of course, bearing different inscriptions there. Residents protest rising costs of living in Ibadan or your state. It's the pictures. If we can have the paper on the front page, and 50 Niger Republic bound food trucks intercepted in Zamfara. Details of that on page 14. FCTA says orphanage over alleged trafficking of 23 children. You can find details of that on pages 4 and 5. And Court Bars Wiki from Centenary City finds Arab contractors 100 million naira. It's on page 9. And just above the nameplate, EFCC detains ex-Kwara governor Ahmed over alleged 10 billion naira fraud. And Aso Villa, DHQ, CBN face disconnection over 47 billion naira debt. And Senate asks FIRS to suspend 17 trillion naira tax waivers. That's the front page of the Punch this morning. Quite a lot for us to digest. Chukwudi, we have a lot to talk about in just in very few minutes. Are you with us?
I think the most important to me is the relationship between labor and government. The 14-day, ultimatum given. They're saying they are going to go on 2 days strike, 27th and the 28th and all that. Those things will complicate matters more and more. Who was it now? The lawmaker representing Ogun East Senatorial District, Senator Benga Daniel, that's a former governor, is actually telling us again that Tinubu inherited a failed economy. That's beginning to sound like a broken record, because we all know that actually the president walked into the doldrums, so to speak. What we are all interested in now is how do we all join hands to lift us from that state of really a pallid economy. Let's not keep on regurgitating, we have to move forward. So labor and government still have to put on their thinking cap. Anything we do that aggravates this situation would eventually touch every one of us. This is not the time for sentiment. Everyone, whether you're a lawmaker, whether you're the president, whether you're Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, whether you're Victor Chukwudi, every one of us will feel what is happening now, whether we like it or not. So what's going to be there for us as a sustaining element, an element that sustains our life and our future, is how much we hold our emotions and face the realities on the ground. That means that there has to be, you meet me halfway, I meat you halfway, to solve whatever we're going through now. That's just it.
You know, I like, as one of us, you know, by one of us I mean a fellow, you know, columnist, you know, put it I think yesterday or during the weekend. They said that yes, the people are hungry, but Mr. President too is also hungry.
That's the truth.
Hungry to also, you know, get things moving, find, you know, solutions to some of the problems that are, you know, rearing their heads. And we should also commend the police yesterday in Ibadan, your state, for the way they handled the protests. At least we've not heard of any, you know, breakdown of law and order. People, you know, went about the protest, you know, peacefully, and, you know, displayed their placards, and the police were there to guide and guard them. So we didn't see any escalation.
Exactly.
Yes. So I think we must commend the police for handling that, and also to say that
they should keep it up too.
Yes, they should, you know,
and commend the ordinary Nigerian for bearing it so far. But the job is not finished. That's what we should be letting people know.
Yes, and you know the government is also not folding its arms. The government is aware. I mean, they also have people living in the countryside, in the villages who may also be affected by this. And if over the weekend there are quite you know, a raft of things that government is doing, you know, to ameliorate some of these things. If you recall, government is also meeting with the drivers. You know, that's the petrol drivers. The Minister of Petroleum Resources, you know, Lokubri, is also meeting, although there's been no consensus agreement, but at least meetings are being held to...
You know, I made a point of Mr. President being a dialogues man or a dialogue man. That is very important. I keep on saying it. I have a reason for it. You do not stifle people really over time. Over time, tempers will boil over. So if you cultivate the culture of keeping them talking with you and all, I tell you, it does a lot.
But
that is where emotional intelligence.
Chukwudi, we must also know that actions. Nigerians believe in actions, not just words. You talk and you match your talk with, you know, action.
But it was inaction that got us all there.
Exactly.
Yeah, not inaction by government alone.
And one thing we must know is the issue, the grains that, you know, the president has directed to be released. It should be. I think modalities should be worked on very fast. You know, so that
those who should get it.
Now you mention it. Now you mention it. I keep on making a point of my being a journalist that tells you that the cup is half full of water, not half empty. Each of them is theoretically correct. Food prices drop in Kano, Taraba, Kwara, and Niger. We also have to. I am giving real value, concrete expression to your saying that government is also taking action. So it's not woes. But the truth is that the situation is such that it's not going to get better immediately. It won't. It won't work that way. All these things government is doing. I'm not an economist, but I talk to people. As a journalist, I have to take information from everyone so that I don't sound daft. What they are trying to do is liberalize the process of everything. Then foreign investors will know that when they come to Nigeria, they will make money. It's not a question of things being subsidized and all that. When they come in, and they really invest here, employment will be all over the place. Over time, the economy will be reflated. What we're saying is, do we need to do everything in one fell swoop? Can we take it one day at a time?
Yes, that's why you have time frames. That's why you have solutions, you know, for the short term, medium term, and the long term. So what our economy manager should be doing at this point, you know, with the way things are going, is to quickly look for the short-term solution. And one of that is the directive to release grains. And you see, food prices are beginning to drop in those states. So if these grains are released to the public or to the markets or wherever, you begin to find that people can't get this food stuff. Because if you look at some of the placards that these people are carrying, it's telling you that gari, you know, a cup or a mudu of gari in Ibadan, it's very expensive, and it's beyond the reach.
I bought a mudu of beans. My daughter combined akamu and beans last week, and I said, Nkechi, this is what we'll keep eating. So I bought a mudu of beans yesterday, 1.5. So it's not just gari.
Yes, it's not just gari. Because, yes,
but now you're talking food, Claire. As the strategic grain reserve is coming to the rescue, how are we planning so that the grains reserve for next year would even be more bounteous? What inputs are you making into farming as we're getting into another farming season? The best planning is planning for tomorrow. It's not planning for yesterday or for today.
Yes, and just before we round up, also, if you know the meeting between the Minister of Works and the Minister of Trade and Investment and, you know, cement manufacturers.
Oh, yes.
The three major cement manufacturers, Dangote, Bua, and Lafarge. You know, I was just going through the communique, and some of the challenges the manufacturers listed are not you know, things that we cannot fix in the immediate. Look at, for instance, the challenges, cost of gas. Okay, cost of gas. High import duty on spare parts, bad road network, high foreign exchange and smuggling of cement to neighboring nations.
Yes.
Bad roads. Bad roads can be fixed in the immediate.
Bad roads can be fixed.
Yes.
But if you're told how much you need to do a standard tar of 1 kilometer, it's not as easy as you think. But I know what you're talking about. You're saying that our priorities list should be occupied, the topmost part of it should be occupied by things that are directly relevant to our immediate life. I agree with you.
Yes.
Anyway, Chukwudi, we must thank you now.
Before you thank me, 50 trucks going to Niger, you know, stopped. We still need to put one foot of theirs in the fire.
Also,
those schoolmakers should not be fed by us.
Also, over 1,000 bags of wheat.
Yes.
You know, from the food program that was meant to go to the vulnerable, you know, people were intercepted, you know, by the police in River State over the weekend. I mean, that was something that was given by the international, you understand, organization.
Yeah, I'm sure that these issues will be in the news the whole of this period, and we'll be able to talk about them over.
Victor is shutting us up. Let's keep quiet.
Chukwudi Okolubaja, thank you very much for your time on.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
Well, we'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll get into our conversation segment.
All right, welcome back to the program. Good morning, Nigeria. It's live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Our first conversation, of course, will be on checking the menace of fake news. But before our conversation begins, let's listen to this background report by our correspondent, Ibrahim Tan Amidu.
The proliferation of misinformation and disinformation has become a pressing concern impacting various aspects of society. This has made tackling fake news in Nigeria imperative, as the spread of misleading information has the potential to incite violence, manipulate public opinion, disorient a large population, and damage the fabric of the society. In recent years, social media and the internet has accelerated the dissemination of false narratives and misinformation, posing significant challenges to media credibility, public trust, and societal harmony. Amid these challenges, the federal government and various stakeholders have been proactive in addressing the issue and advocating the regulation of social media to prevent fake news, which is usually weaponized to cause mayhem and anarchy. In understanding the complexities of checking the menace of fake news, it is essential to first acknowledge the role of digital literacy and critical thinking. Initiatives aimed at educating the public about the dangers of fake news and equipping them with the skills to spot credible sources from misinformation are pivotal in this fight. Furthermore, collaborations between government agencies, media organizations, and technology companies have been fostered to leverage technological solutions in the identification and timely debunking of fake news. These partnerships aim to strengthen fact-checking capabilities and counter false narratives effectively. Fact-checking organizations and journalists dedicated to verifying information plays a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of news and information dissemination. Their work in scrutinizing and debunking false claims serves as a fortification against the spread of misinformation in the media landscape. It is important to note that citizens themselves have a vital role to play in combating fake news. Engaging in responsible information sharing practices and verifying sources before spreading information are fundamental steps towards creating a more informed and judicious public. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will discuss the power in implementing strategies in the fight against fake news in Nigeria and prosecuting its perpetrators to confront the menace of fake news and preserve the integrity of information in our society.
All right, thank you very much, Ibrahim and Hamidu, for the background report. And joining us now is Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Prof.
Thank you very much.
And also joining us is Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State. Welcome you to Good
Thank you
Morning
very much. I'm grateful. Good to be here.
Yes, okay. Let me also welcome David Akoji, Director, Special Duties and State Operations, National Orientation Agency. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let me begin with Ahmed Sajo. Let me begin with you. Because I happen to have an idea that you're a journalist. So what falls into that category of what we call fake news?
And you didn't want to ask a professor. You're asking a practitioner.
Everyone here is a journalist. Everyone
He
here
was in the field.
Prof was a column.
Anyway,
Except if you're a professor of fake news.
Anyway, I think false narratives pushed in the public space could be considered as fake news. But I think sometimes in determining fake news, we need to also determine the context. In most cases, purveyors of fake news have motives to achieve by pushing such false narrative into the public space. And at times, it could be, you know, to engineer, like your reporter said, to engineer anarchy within the system. But at times it's, you know, to confer advantage, undue advantage on either an individual or a product. You know, it's not like just fake news is just about, you know, news or about causing anarchy and the rest. Sometimes, you know, false claims about certain happenings within society or false claim about certain products could also be categorized as fake news. So fake news, you know, goes beyond just trying to cause anarchy in the public, but it could also be trying to either confer undue advantage or try to denigrate something that has some advantages. But what I feel very uncomfortable about is that we seem to think that fake news only occurs within the social media space. And I tend to disagree. I know that there are so many, you know, fake news taking place out there in the conventional media that sometimes it's hard for people to even, you know, check it up. I recently sat down with a lawyer that took the NBC to court with respect to whether NBC has a right to moderate media houses and things like that. And I was just telling him that he was talking about freedom of information, that any attempt, to regulate the media is trying to regulate the rights of people to have, the information flow, and that the licensing of media houses was illegal and all that and all that. And I said, okay, now everybody has a right to drive a car. Why are you not saying that having a license to drive a car or having licensing your car is also, infringement on your rights? So a social order within a system is absolutely necessary, and I think that's where we have a problem. So it's not just within the social media space that we have fake news, but let me caution here that public information managers, I was once a public information manager, so I know what I'm saying. Public information managers are also not helping us to get over some of this speculative news. Let me not even call them fake, but sometimes they're just speculative. And I imagine that I just followed trends recently. The Minister of Works went out there and he saw, a contractor using mud instead of laterite. He proved it there and even claimed that he had withdrawn the government official that sanctioned it. But the contractor is still on site. The contractor is still on site. Now, the Minister of Power, if you notice, he just mentioned that the more they build power infrastructure, the more saboteurs bring them down. And that they know these people, they will overcome them. But he has not mentioned names. He's given people an opportunity to begin to speculate as to who and who and who. When the Ibadan bomb, the Ibadan blast explosion happened, the Minister of Mines said there are powerful cartels within the mining sector that have even threatened his life. But he has not mentioned anybody. So for as long as information managers of government do not come out clean, if the information is still work in progress, they should keep it until they are able to expose the full gamut of it. Otherwise, they're giving room for speculations, and sometimes these speculations result in fake news and fake narratives out there. Okay,
and I was wondering where you were headed to with those examples, but you have landed, so we know the link between those the information those of government officials dished out and fake news. But again, you also talked about that fake news can also be found among the conventional media. I remember some time ago, many years ago, of course, one of those conventional media, related the story about the death of a president, and we also know quite recently, the news about the death of former president and all that. But in such instances, Professor Gichukwu, would you term those as fake news? Because the difference between fake news and that is the intention.
Mm-hmm. Now we begin with definitions. Yes. The whole concept of news is something new. The news is a bit of a colloquial transformation of new events. That's why I have newspaper. A paper publication is not a textbook, but it's for breaking information of the day before, which people need to know about. To the extent that you're saying something new, there is no distinction. In other words, fake news refers to a report that is factually incorrect or deliberately designed to mislead or is out of mischief. And you remember Village Headmaster? Amebo was the commissioner for fake news, if you like. She was just a character. It was set in a village. And this is just a village woman who, anything she hears, she will come, maybe he has told her that, I hear they are coming to give vaccination to everybody in the village. He said, what is vaccination? He says, when they inject you, in those days it was here, then you will not fall sick because of a disease that is coming. She now moves straight to him. Oh, have you heard about the she will find very usually it will fill into a concept. Have you heard about the whatever? It could sound like flask that they are bringing, that they say when they pour it on your hand here, you will not be sick again for the rest of your life.
But is that really fake news? That's the disinformation because
no. That I want us to take away, because misinformation and disinformation become too technical for the people. We spend too much time explaining it. So if you want to reach everybody, look for the least common denominator for the conceptual understanding. So misinformation is fake news. Disinformation is fake news. Deliberate distortion of fact is fake news. So, but you take, in a forum like this that you're addressing people who even didn't go to school, you take the umbrella concept of fake news. So, yes, it is news that comes out that is factually incorrect or deliberately distorted, but all of which do not aid social cohesion. Because if you want to operate with it, you can't do anything with it. It's not anchored in fact. Now you take it a little further to our contemporary environment, and taking up from his point about those who deliberate about it. Now, fake news becomes an instrument for social disruption when I knowingly alter a fact in an event and put it out in the public domain to make you look bad, or I withhold the correct version and present a distorted version. All of that falls within the domain of fake news. But the issue is, I think a lot of government energy goes into, I mean, you celebrate the fact that some have been arrested or whatever, prosecuted for fake news. But why do we have fake news, and why is it growing? When we were growing up, news would come through a monitored channel. If you're in the newspaper house, the reporter comes, the sub-desk cleans up the story for typo, grammar, and all the rest of it, and then checks that it fits within the house style. There's a way this thing is written, and then it goes out. So after you've sent it out, it goes through your editor, either the desk editor, and then goes through the editor, and then you have the editor-in-chief. Today, with my mobile phone, I'm a publisher, I'm an editor, I'm a sub-desk man, I'm an editor-in-chief, I'm even a television house.
Yeah, content provider.
Content provider. I'm CNN on two legs. So you then see, when you talk of, regulating, first of all, acknowledge that you can't. To the extent that the gamut of interventions in the media are way beyond any regulatory apparatus. But there must be rules which, if you infringe them. Because there's also among the particular younger operators in the sector, the mistaken assumption that when you speak of freedom of information, it means license. It doesn't. Every society has its own space which it must regulate by laws. If you're free to say whatever you like, then why do you have law on libel? So the final note on which I want to round this is that fake news is news that's not factually correct, could be intended to mislead, could be actually out of error. Then the matter of checking it, there must be regulations, but regulators have to acknowledge that.
I think we just have to pause it there before we look at ways of checking. Yes, I want us to really lay a very solid background and understand the forms fake news can take, so that people know, when they are peddling fake news and know that, look, this is fake news. Because recently, a private radio station, in Kwara State came out with, an apology, over what it reported. Yes, it transmitted on air and all that. So that's why, Mr. Koji, can you give us, are there forms that fake news can come in, either in terms of, comic satire,
Parody.
Yes.
While agreeing with Prof that perhaps the bulk of our national population may not be technically capable of understanding the distinctions, I think it's important to make those distinctions clear, because a general categorization of these distortions within the information ecosystem as fake news doesn't quite clearly paint the picture, wholly as it ought to be. What people colloquially refer to as fake news is as Prof said, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. And then in the medical field, they've come up with a term that's called infodemics. And this became prominent during the pandemic, where you have a deluge of information, some true, some false, you know, some misleading, but all of them have consequences for management of emergency situations. This information, like you rightly said, is intentional, you know, is deliberate intention to mislead, you know, people with an intention to cause harm, you know, or to escalate an already tense situation, which is what we're seeing now. It goes to what you referred to when you talked about the news that came out of a radio station in Kwara, referring to a purported statement that was made by a former head of state, which was actually not made and has been debunked. In the intro, I found some very, very interesting postulations in your intro, which are factual. It takes time for debunks to chase and overcome, you know, disinformation. So I think that what's important is, like you rightly asked, I've told you the 4 different forms. There's disinformation, which is deliberate intention to cause harm and to mislead. There's misinformation, which is anxiousness to share. We don't have critical thinking, largely. If you see information that agrees with your internal nuances, your preset mind, you are eager to just send it to all groups and everything without actually interrogating that news. And then we talked about malinformation and the challenge of infodemics also. So I think that it's important for members of the public to be aware of all of these dimensions, so they know the role they are playing in this colloquial fake news. Everyone is involved one way or the other. But the thing we need to do is take time, pause, and really interrogate whatever kind of information that comes before us, examine what impact, you know, that information can have on existing situations if we carelessly just share. At National Orientation Agency, we have done a lot in this regard. Conducted several capacity building sessions, you know, on managing incidents of fake news. We had been running a national fact-checking course, which attracted participation from the military, the intelligence community, civil service, and all of that. In the current time, the National Orientation Agency is about to launch an app. That app will also serve the purpose of debunk. And we're making that app to be so interesting that the youths will run after it. There are incentives, you know, around the use of it. I won't say much about it because it's about to be launched like next week. We're also coming up with an explainer, which will also carry debunks. You know, that explainer is a journal that will come out very regularly. National Orientation Agency is also looking at a TV and radio studio, you know, which will also interrogate the issues of, and all of this would happen pretty soon. So these are some of the things we're doing around this challenge of fake news. It's disheartening. Whenever the nation finds itself in a tense situation like we are currently, you find very negative people begin to latch onto it and want to escalate.
We were expecting the NOA because there was a recent also, you know, fake news about the directive of the Niger State government, you know, and the issue of the blocked road preventing crops going to the southern part, to Kwara and all that. And the fact is that that was a fake news. What did the NOA do? Because that sent a lot of, I mean, it caused a lot of panic.
It was,
yes.
I am not sure whether it would be fair to expect to hear from NOA on this, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, because NOA,
it's an issue of security, it's an issue of governance, it's an issue of social cohesion. Yeah, so I don't know. It just
because the NOA, knowing that this is not true, this is not factual, this is not the case, should have come out, you know, to the public to alert the public that, see, this is not the case, this is fake news.
Yes, we did that. We understood the implication. It was a misinterpretation of a genuine action to tackle the challenge of food scarcity by the Niger State government. Even the federal government is speaking in that same direction right now. They are discouraging incidents of hoarding, of food hoarding. And in most of our villages today, there are people who go with trailers and buy off bulk food from rural farming folks, you know, and go and hoard them until a time when the prices would go up. So it's a national challenge, not peculiar to Niger State alone. But you see, when you put out an information, people can interpret it in manners that may be mischievous. And this is what happened.
A question will arise now. Are we not infringing on the right of businessman to do his business practice? You see, the truth about it is that, you know, I said it at the beginning, Prof also reiterated it, that this thing is contextual, it's within a concept. You look at it, it's not like Nigeria presently, because of the extreme frustrations that we're facing due to the situation, people are thinking more negatively than positively. And anything that is negative, if it falls within the concept of what you think is the situation you find yourself in, you want to share it with people, you want to propagate it in such a manner that, look, all we're looking for is validation. My feeling today, the way I feel about this country, is it a shared feeling with other Nigerians? And that is a mindset thing that we need to address it. When you say, you know, for all times, let's be honest, businessmen have their own practices. They do it. You cannot say it should be stopped. But what you can do is, when you are churning out an information, as much as possible, try to be like Prof will tell you, that we would not assume that everybody is at our own level of intellect. That if I say this way, this is how everybody will interpret it. You know, when there is this misinterpretation of a message, people with negative mindset will latch on it and escalate it, and it affects social cohesion. You notice that in the Niger case, instantly it became a north versus south kind of thing. And people were even talking about blocking certain goods from the south coming up north and all that and all that. But that was not the intention. That was even not but whatever you're going to do, you know, the dividing line between what you consider as factual news and as fake news, it's with the context within which it's been pushed. Like I said earlier, some of this so-called fake news or misinformation that goes out there is done deliberately to either confer advantage or denigrate something you don't like. We just look at it from this context. What can we do? If you say you want to regulate, Prof has already told you, one person now is the editor, he is the publisher, he is the reporter. How do you, in the past, the media had what we call gatekeeping, gatekeepers. In the past, the media has people you can hold responsible. Even the laws of libel and slander were within the context of the fact that you could hold the publisher accountable. You could hold the purveyor of the news accountable. These days, so many people run media outfits that you cannot even trace where they are. It's a mobile app, so they are also mobile.
Now, you have talked about, you see, that's where we are getting to. You have talked about intention. That wasn't the intention, but that was the result. Yeah. And sometimes we must also admit that people disseminate what we term fake news ignorantly, not because they have intentions, but this is the much they know. They don't know better. So the question is, how do we begin to manage all of this? It has a lot of dimensions. There are those who deliberately disseminate fake news because they have a goal in mind. They have ulterior motives. But many others do not. It's just out of ignorance. Some because of lack of the capacity to fact check, and all of that. But how do we manage? Because the consequences don't now tell us that there's a trivial one where this person didn't have the intention. The consequences are most times dire, whether deliberate or not.
Well, I'm glad he mentioned infodemics. Information saturation is a very strong factor in fake news. On a particular matter, you've got more than 20 posts. You can't verify it as the average Nigerian. And like you said, you choose the one that suits you. Hey, I've been saying it. Do you see it in this post? So outside of fake news, even in the professions, the world is facing information saturation. It's affecting everything. Even regulatory agencies in the area of technology, there's so much coming out. But for instance, in a telecom and area, the effects of some of the gadgets we use on our nervous system, so much is coming out every day that the regulatory agencies cannot cope. In the medical sector, if you take your NAFDAC certified supplement, what does it tell you? It does this and that and that. NAFDAC has not verified it. We inherited that from the US. This is something you're telling us to take. It makes this claim. You've certified it to be in the market, but you cannot confirm that the claim is correct. Because there are so many such products, it's become part of global practice. Actually, that's a good example of legitimization of claims, which can be called fake news. America perfected it, and the whole world began to accept it. That I can come to my children and say, look, this is an orange. The person who gave it to me says it clears your throat, it gives you vitamin C, it makes you healthy, it makes you wake up feeling strong. But I don't know whether it's true, so children take it. That's where the world is. That's everything you're getting. And that's where the world is. So that's infodemics, or information saturation, which is a baseline concept for that, is a strong factor. The other one is that when we speak of regulation, we must know that regulation must be there. This is not a no man's land. But we must also then know that there are those who cannot be affected by regulation. If you set up a media house, whether for broadcast or print or whatever, or online newspapering, you're setting it up within the law, within a country, and part of your duty is not to either overawe the government, disturb public peace, or make a nuisance of yourself. To that extent, you must be held liable for putting out information that's not in the national interest. So regulation is mandatory. The other thing is that, and that's where NOAA comes in, fortunately they are doing well. By the way, your new man is really a NOAA man from birth. Honestly, the guy is good. So it comes in. There is need for public education on the sense of social responsibility in the information you put out. Check the records and you'll find the couple that was fired, I'll use the word, by, I think, Judge Bush. They had got secret shots, what you call exclusive here, of the bodies of American soldiers who were being brought in from Iraq. That was the last time they functioned, the media. That's what you call national interest reporting. This is not a no man's land. So this illusory notion of freedom, the person, like Elijah said, the person who was saying, oh, you know, I have to sue NBC, they are infringing on my freedom. Ask him, how would you feel if you saw a picture of your father on the internet without his chest, just bare-chested, and where he's chewing stick, and he's put out on the internet, and the person is saying freedom of information? How would you feel? You see, his sense of decency will immediately key in. And then it becomes easy to understand, to educate him on the intention of the state. The state is like a family. There are rules. There are laws of indecency. There are rules of secrecy, what you call strategic silence. That's what this organizes. That's why something like NBC exists. But when also in carrying out its task, and a government agency like that is seen or suspected or described as tendentious, then it loses credibility, and that only fuels more fake news. Just a brief comment on what the comments both of them made about food supply and the practice of businessmen. You see, this raiding of warehouses presents the prospect of unfair treatment of businessmen. There's a difference between warehousing and hoarding. When you buy 30,000 bags of rice to sell, you warehouse it. Now, for you to sell it, it must be at a price that's working for you. In other words, you're warehousing it to sell. Your objective in doing business, you're not part of Red Cross or Red Crescent. You didn't buy rice to make people happy. Unlike government that brings out rice to make people happy.
But we also have to make sure that those are real warehouses.
That's the clarification I'm leading to.
Yes, we must clarify that.
I said there's a difference between warehousing and hoarding. So I'm getting to your point. Warehouses are known. So when I store, for instance, you remember during the COVID period, when some people carried palliatives and kept, that is hoarding. So I'm only saying it so that distinction becomes the basis for arrests, for breaking open places.
Anyway, that's not the focus of our conversation. Obviously. So let's just hold on. Let's stay with fake news.
Okay. And I won't stay with fake news. I'm sorry.
Well, no, let's stay with the fake news issue. Let's stay with the issue.
Let's avoid fake news, Abby.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned regulation and the role of the NBC.
Yeah.
And it would appear that the NBC's powers to sanction where it affects conventional media houses, who err with regards to, of course, being the first to break news, and it turns out to be fake news. And a number of them are falling into that trap. And we see those, by radio stations, even media houses, and only to come out to apologize, like you said, apologies will not the damage, So in such instances where those conventional media houses, err with regards to airing fake news, what happens? What can be? How can they be sanctioned now that NBC's power, seem to have lost the power to do that? Yes.
But you see, in the case of traditional media, NBC still has broadcast media. And the NBC still has the powers to sanction.
Absolutely.
For instance, they could have chosen to sanction this radio station in
Kwara State.
In Kwara State.
The court ruled against that. Yes.
But you see, what the court ruled against is sanctioned by way of fines. You understand that there's no authority to place fines. In times past, NBC would say, you pay so million naira. That's what the court ruled against. But there are other forms of sanction that NBC can put on airing broadcast stations. You see, there are two things I want to talk about quickly. One, it's important to know that there's a law against hoarding. So it's actually illegal to hoard. Government has a responsibility to protect its citizens. If we encourage this in the food sector, then I could as well go and buy all the Ventolin that asthmatic patients need and create a scarcity. Do you understand? And sell at whatever price that I want. That is rested. On the issue of regulation, there are about 3 or 4 different layers of regulation that's practiced in other parts of the world for the social media.
I still want you to give us an idea of what the NBC can't do with regards to conventional before we move to the social media, because
they can suspend them from airing for a period. But they can suspend their license for a period.
NBC has been sanctioning.
You understand?
That one case goes against them.
They cannot withdraw license.
I don't know that to be part.
I saw the judge. I debated with the lawyer that took the matter.
Please give us more insight into that.
I was a member of the board of the NBC, and when we sat with the lawyer, just like Prof said, I put it to him that if this thing had affected a member of his family, how would he react? And he said, well, their only is to protect rights. I said, look, rights must have boundaries. Your right stops exactly where my own right begins. If in exercising your right, it affects my right, then it's no longer exercising your right. You are infringing on mine. And that's what we're trying to say. The NBC had fines as an option, withdrawal of license, refusal to renew licenses, and these were the issues that they took to court.
Even suspension of licenses for a period.
These were the issues that they took to court and said these things are infringement of fundamental rights of people as enshrined in the Constitution to get to manage information. But at the end of the day, now the NBC is hamstrung. It cannot take all the decisions or the actions that it's supposed to take to protect the public from some of those things. And that is why probably, you know, what we got from a radio station is just an apology. Yeah. Ordinarily, it should have been sanctioned. Now, if we do not restore the right of NBC, for example, to sanction airing broadcast stations, you know what happens during crisis. For those of us that have been long enough to have witnessed coup d'etats in Nigeria, during a coup d'etat period, the radio becomes practically the government. Becomes the government. It directs people what to do. We know regulation will be a little bit hard. Anytime I go to a library, one of the things I like about the media archives is to look at 1984, you know, newspapers. 1984, when there was Decree 4, it was difficult to write against government. And so the place where you get all the kind of adverse information you wanted were in cartoons. I don't know what... That's really it became the platform. And you could easily see that what they didn't want written and said were conveyed through these caricatures, and it really worked. No, regulation 100% is a bit difficult. But like Prof said, and I'm fully behind what he's saying, and our brothers they now has a lot of work to do on that, that we need to enlighten citizens on social responsibility, that crisis knows no boundaries, that you may think that, you know, it only happens to A, B, C, D. I am from the Northeast, and I keep saying it. When Boko Haram started in Maiduguri, we thought we were comfortable in Adamawa. But by the time they came, took over my hometown, changed the name from Mubi to Madinatul Islam, and had my aged father, who was alive then, you know, of blessed memory, walk on foot from Mubi to Dumo in Cameroon. That was when we realized that that crisis that was happening in Maiduguri that we thought was very far away
was actually your business.
Was actually our own business. And it's the same thing we're facing now. You could sit down in your comfort zone and post a story that could cause social upheaval in Nigeria, and you think you're safe. Wherever you are, you know, something like a stray bullet will meet you where you are. Yeah. When this crisis is happening now, banditry, kidnapping, it was too far away. Zamfara was far away from us. Today they're kidnapping in our FCT Abuja.
You know why I asked that question?
In all our villages.
It's because there was a research that the BBC did some years back, you know, about fake news. Why, you know, fake news is thriving in certain countries, and Nigeria was one of those countries it focused on. And surprisingly, it said that some of the findings was that Nigerians, you know, consume as much news source from traditional media as
from the social media.
Yes. So there's a balance. And if the traditional media is throwing the way of the social media in terms of, you know, the content of news they put out, then we are in big trouble. We are in big trouble. So we must find a way to check that. And then face social media that has a lot of problems, you know, controlling.
What you see? When you talk, yes, that is correct. I don't know, you say we're in trouble. I think we've always been in trouble. And it's not peculiar to Nigeria. When government responds to fake news, in what form does it come? The response is usually too long. Has it occurred to us?
The response is too long?
Usually
okay, we're noting that.
Too long. Take, for instance, there has been an incident in some estate. I think this time there was some controversy whether the Americans joined the Nigerians to facilitate an operation in one estate in Abuja. And there were releases by several armed services about their involvement. First, you have, our attention has been drawn to an unpatriotic report by disgruntled elements about this and that and that. You see, official government communication and security communication is not work. It's about facts people can quickly pick up without being distracted. All those paragraphs are useless in the circumstance. Our attention has been drawn to this report about this incident in so and so. Full stop. The information in the public domain is incorrect. Full stop. Here are the facts relating to the matter. This operation took place on this date. There was no involvement of the Americans or whatever, and it was concluded on so and so. 3 people were arrested and they are in so and so. The public should please be informed. End of story. Because nobody has the time to read your 3-4 page entry. And then, yes, and then you push it to all the platforms that helped in pushing the fake news. Because one of the rules of response in media is that the platform for dissemination should also be the platform for calling.
Precisely.
And therefore, 3 things in that regard. Isolation of what needs to be dealt with. The most concise form in which it can be put, so that even the person in a hurry will get at least 50% of the message. And then finally, to know there is a steady job. Because once you bring in, you get like, you have those who say, oh, Boko Haram is now degraded. They are now shamelessly attacking soft targets. What is shamelessly coming into it? They are not talking about dignity. They want to kill. Do you get it? So when you have, when you have expressions like that, first of all, even for the security agents, especially the military, it downgrades their own thinking into thinking that an emotional expression in a report or a release strengthens or indicates their efficiency. So after they said, despite all of this, we shall not be distracted from our work as patriotic military professionals. We continue to. Who asked you that?
So government's response or official response to fake news must be concise,
to the point,
prompt,
and as it's coming, you're giving it back. So that means the government practice of a whole new concept and approach to media. You know, when we were in information, I set up a newsroom under my office as essay to the minister. The whole concept of news, of intervention. You know, the whole idea, you write what it is, you send it to the deputy director, and it travels and comes back. It's totally 50 years out of date. So you have to now have a situation room, but there must be somebody clearing it who also has capacity for speedy intervention. And then at the end of the day, they send a report which will constitute the administrative component.
Okay.
Well, I had wanted to ask, because all we have, if we have to toe that same civil line in trying to check what fake news is using the NBC. And now that NBC is running into some challenges, I'm beginning to think, do we need to resort to the National Assembly to strengthen the NBC? David Koji.
The NBC is a product of an act of Parliament.
That's why I said strengthen.
Yes, So yes, you can strengthen, but I think also there's need for some level of enlightenment, like you said, to the judiciary. You take away the entire essence of the NBC if you strip them of their capacity to regulate. How are they going to regulate if they cannot sanction? And that's what the court seems to have taken away. I have not followed that news to know what the current status is. I imagine that the NBC will challenge that, will go to some higher court, and then seek further redress on that issue. They wouldn't let it lie like that.
No, I think what the court relied on was the fact that most of the activities, the regulatory activities of the NBC was in the broadcasting code that was fashioned out by the NBC itself, not in the act.
The act. Okay.
So what they are what the NBC can do is that, because before I left the NBC as a board member, we had already started the process of reviewing the law of the NBC.
Okay.
What they should do now is to now strengthen the law. And even the lawyer that took the matter to court told me that if those issues, those things that they were doing were in the act, that it would have been difficult to have ruled against it. But it's in the broadcasting code, and the broadcasting code was not the law. So now
is bringing the broadcasting code into the law.
Exactly. That the aspects of the broadcasting code that can aid the regulation of the activities of the broadcast stations should be captured in the law sufficiently enough that anybody that goes to court would find that the law protects the NBC.
So in the interim, the media houses are their own. Is that what it is?
No, it isn't. It isn't, because there's also the primary law of social responsibility. So that even without government intervention, it guides every media house. That you've set up a media house, but you're operating within a country that has laws against disturbance of public peace, among other things. So the NBC, remember the NBC came into being at a point. Before the NBC came into being, this was not a jungle. There were rules. Okay, going back to when I was on the Guardian editorial board, the Guardian has its house rules, which determine the kind of expressions you can use in that publication, which determine the kind of things you can say about family, you know, core values that if this paper promotes it, will lead to a better society. Or if it promotes this one, it leads to a wrong, that's the editorial policy. So it's always been there. NBC is not totally, if you like, emasculated. NBC can begin to adopt some of the methods of Noah, which is public education. Have you thought of what it will look like if the NBC were to organize a retreat? Invite core media operators? Yes, for a session. Those are the kind of things that you create buy-in instead of always meeting at the point of combat. In that retreat, they will call you all the names you want, and you tell them, this is why I'm doing this. So more than 60% of externalized hostilities will be buried in 3 days of a retreat. That must happen at least once
we have to really pause and allow Mr. Koji to actually, I wanted you to speak more on this app, because the app that you're coming up, the new app now, will really, help a lot to address the issues coming from the social media, because the social media platforms, are encrypted. So a lot of this younger generation, who peddle fake news, rely on them, to get to as many community as they can. So if you may, share with us briefly, without going into, the nitty-gritty.
Into the details. Well, the app is multi-purpose. One of the things we intend that it should serve is to douse tension. And let me just speak briefly about the intervention that Prof made concerning the format.
We have a few minutes.
Yes, the format. I'll be quick about it. The format in which government debunks of disinformation comes and how that loses a lot of its audience. He's actually correct about that. A refutal is not the same as a debunk. The format for a debunk when you are dealing with disinformation is definite. There's a template for it. And it's concise and brief and goes straight to the point. Okay. So I think government spokespersons should do some training in this regard so that we change the way, that we do
will this involve the NOA, Ministry of Information, the official spokesperson?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I take that, for me, it's a takeaway from here now.
Yes.
That there's a gap in this direction, in line with what Prof has said. And we already have a national fact-checking course platform. So it's for us to bring these guys together and then put them through the professional format for debunks, that's global. Don't let me dwell too much on that. The app.
Yes, the app.
So the app has multi-functions. One of the things we intend to do is when we do a debunk, it will be possible to carry it on the app. This app will be available to all our community orientation and mobilization officers in the 774 local governments. What that means is you can gain traction and speed in terms of putting out the truth, through this app. The app also will present a reporting format for people who see something that is wrong and can see and put in that app. So it will enable quick dispensation of our special reports, which goes to different offices, to alert responsible government offices concerning things that may degenerate, into problems. How we're making it interesting is people will be able to win even airtime when they participate, when that comes. So this will attract young people, yes, onto this. And then it will become very, very popular and functional. then it will play the role that we are designing it to play.
I hope we are going to talk the walk.
We will walk the talk.
Walk the talk.
We will.
Two very quick interventions on this. What is just said, we did it during the Centenary City celebration. So this incentivization, nobody should joke with it. And it was also recharge cards. There was a deluge, serving corps members. They come for the recharge card, but they get educated behind their back. That's the way to do it. Then the second point has to do with the spokesperson thing. And I think we'll talk in the office later. There's already a planned workshop for national spokespersons, covering government, corporate organizations, because you must have a concise notion of national communication. You cannot, in excitement about your organization, say what is against the national interest. And it's been convened through the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations.
NIPR, yes.
NIPR.
There's also an award.
That goes with this on that
award,
occasion,
yes.
because I'm the National Vice Chairman Education. So it's being planned. So the spokespersons, you don't become a spokesperson because I've been appointed a minister and I appoint you. You become a spokesperson because you've gotten a template on how not to become part of the problem of your boss and the organization. So,
all right. Let me thank you, but just before we go, let's give some 30 seconds to Sergio to round off his thoughts.
I think what Prof is saying, I'm also a member of that committee and we're working on it. I was a former spokesperson and I know the terrain very well. I was a spokesperson to a governor and I was a commissioner spokesperson to a government. So I understand very well that if public communication managers are not properly trained and they don't coordinate, you will not be able to solve this problem. And then the last thing is that, look, if we are able to coordinate our conventional media very well, we can, to a large extent, use the conventional media to checkmate the social media. And I think that is what we need to do.
All right. Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State. Thank you very much for your time and thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. My pleasure always.
Right. And Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And lastly, but not by no means the least, David Akoji.
Sounds very interesting. So we'll keep at it. We'll keep eyes on it.
And States Operations National Orientation Agency. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure.
For your time. We do have a second topic, and so we'll take a break now, and that conversation begins immediately after. Right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. We have a second topic like we had indicated earlier, and in partnership with Cash Token Rewards Africa. The federal government, through the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, NLRC, established the Nigerian National Patronage Cash Reward Program as a sustainable solution for the government to stimulate and grow the economy. Claire.
All right, this has been piloted over the last 5 years. And as designed, it has been demonstrated to trigger a sustainable wealth redistribution program that will touch every Nigerian's life as never before. That's what we're told.
And then, joining us to speak more on Nigeria's National Patronage Cash Reward is Mr. Lanre Gbajabiamila. He's Director General, National Lottery Regulatory Commission. It's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you.
All right. We also have here with us Dr. Lai Labode, CEO, Cash Token Rewards Africa. And it's also a pleasure to have you. And by the way, I love this. I think the camera needs to get you food. And he told us earlier that this is Egba. So yes, please, let's flaunt it.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, so let's begin the conversation, Dr. Lai. What do we know, or what should we know about the NNPCR?
Okay, first of all, I think the bigger credit, first of all, goes to the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, who had licensed the private sector in the first place. And for over 5 years, we thought that Africa needs a new generation of socially smart business models. And were presented to NLRC 5 years ago. Of course, they're taking a while until Mr. Bojibamila joined the NLRC and decided to look at it and say, wait a minute, we can actually do wealth redistribution here. So here's what it is. As long as you can patronize the Nigerian business, you should be rewarded for it because you're helping the economy grow. So what was approved was for us to run the cash token rewards in the private sector, which we have been doing for 5 years, and we've paid almost 20 billion naira to Nigerians who are buying from Nigerian businesses. These have been funded by Nigerian businesses, the likes of MTN, the likes of Glo, the likes of Airtel. Now, after looking at it and looking at the current situation in Nigeria, of course, there's a lot of suffering. The government is trying a million things to get it done. The NLRC thought it was important to look at the private sector and those it's currently regulating right now to say, you know what, this that you have done for 5 years, why don't we create something that is more national to impact Nigerians' lives? And then we establish what is called the Nigerian National Patronage Cash Reward, which means that as long as you can patronize the Nigerian business, you will be rewarded for it. And of course, we can truly get a lot of Nigerians out of poverty.
Dr. Lai, thank you. I know the DG of the Lottery Commission will get to you presently, sir, if you don't mind. Let's just have an understanding of this cash token rewards. I think I do see it on TV, and I see people go to shops and get things. I don't know if that is the case, and they scream, "Oh, you know, cash token, present your cash token." But my earlier opinion was that, oh, this, you know, I mean, could it be real? Are they genuine and all that? But here we are discussing it as a national, you know, program, as a way of rewarding Nigerians, as a way of poverty alleviation, if you may. And I just would appeal to you to really break it down so that people, it's not just going to the shop and then buying something and then you are, you know, entitled to the cash token. How does a customer who visits a shop, you know, qualify for this reward?
So let me put it this way. And it is very scientific, and luckily we've tried it for 5 years. Imagine that you are an MTN. Let me use MTN because MTN has impacted so many lives.
MTN will pay because MTN is not sponsoring this.
You know, every Nigerian business.
Globacom. If you say Globacom,
there's Globacom, there's Airtel, there's all of them. Yes. Any Nigerian business that is impacting Nigerian lives at this time is a supporter of this government. Let me put it that way. Now, imagine that you're an MTN or Glo or Airtel customer and you have patronized them. That means you're helping their businesses grow in the first place, right? Now, they are only saying thank you to you for patronizing them. But what they have done is that they have ensured that you have met a certain purchase threshold. You have met their business objective. Now, what they are giving you is called the cash token. Now, that reward instantly puts into your wallet cash as a thank you for patronizing us. And this is the important part of it. The second thing is that you also get a ticket that takes you into a weekly national consumer draw. Now, that national consumer draw is for 5,000 to 100 million. You do not need to gamble to get it. You have only patronized the Nigerian business. So all you need to do, to answer your question directly, is you need to patronize the business before you can get rewarded. So when you hear you have received a cash token, you have a national reward, you have just patronized the business. The business has taken part of what they have earned to reward you. That's what this is about. And so for us...
So assuming I get to a big, you know, supermarket
yeah,
or mall,
yes,
and I pick up items, I, you know, buy items, that automatically qualifies me.
It qualifies you.
But that mall must be registered with you.
So here's what we're doing. We're in the private sector that we've done for 5 years. We have about 200 businesses that are with us, right? Okay. But what the NLRC is doing with us is that why don't we make this bigger so that you buy petrol, you buy food, whatever you buy, whether you are rich or poor, you must buy.
Yeah.
And as long as you're buying, you're contributing to this economy. You should be rewarded for that.
Okay.
That is what this is about now. So that you don't have to be selective. Everywhere you go, you should be able to get that reward. But there's a proviso here that you must have patronized the business and met their purchase threshold, because one of the key objectives, yes, this is important. So if you are buying airtime of 1,000 right now from MTN, right? And MTN is saying if you spend more, or Glo, for example, you love Glo a lot. I mean, I love Glo too. I mean, these are Nigerian businesses. Any business that touches a Nigerian life is a Nigerian business. Now, they want you to spend a little more. Now, you spent 1,200, and then they bought a national reward at 50 naira and give to you, right? you got the reward, you got instant cash in your wallet. Every Nigerian will now carry one reward wallet for all businesses. That is unprecedented. Now, you also get a ticket into the draw. A draw for 5,000 to 100 million that you don't have to gamble. All you have to do is to buy. We think that's really powerful. And at this stage that we are right now, we think that's exactly what the country needs, and we're very happy.
I think we have to escalate too, because now the draw has come in.
I was left wondering anyway, because it's packaged like a social kind of social reward system. And I was wondering, before I get into the other question for you, how there are people who may not be able to afford to get to that threshold. What's in it for them? Okay.
Because he has you're here to give us the threshold.
I think I'll give you that. Yes. But let me just run this through you. Imagine that your guard does not spend as much as you buying food or airtime or whatever. It accumulates until it gets to that point. So it gets to everyone. It's a design. And NRS was also very careful in the design to say, hey, private sector, take it easy. Let's take a review to ensure that we can touch every Nigerian life. So it's very targeted. So if you're not spending as much, you may get maybe a lot more national rewards. Your driver may get less, but he will always get there. Because as long as you are buying, it's accumulating for you until you get there.
So there are no benchmark. What do you call it?
For everybody.
Yes.
So each business has different margins. Remember that.
Okay.
So each business needs to set their threshold. Because one of the key objectives, and let me just say this, I'm sure Mr. Abuja will expatiate, is that we want to be able to boost the economy. So those businesses that are selling, we don't want them to lose. It's a business-friendly policy, which is why...
Assuming it's fuel.
Yes.
The driver is buying fuel.
Fantastic.
Fuel is, let's say, 640, 650 per litre. And you're buying maybe 10,000 naira.
Yes.
You understand? Does that qualify you?
So, by calculation, that will qualify you to get one.
Is that the threshold?
That will qualify you to get one. So if somebody bought 20,000, the person will get two. Somebody bought 30,000, the person will get three.
So the more you buy...
The more you buy Nigerian, the more reward you get for it.
So, what did the Lottery Commission see in this?
Oh, well, for us, it was a no-brainer for us when Mr. Labode approached us. This was something that he had been doing for the last 5 years. And we, as a regulatory agency of government, what we, as well as the Lottery Commission, what we normally do is to understudy every scheme, whether lottery program or sports betting or whatever the case may be. We call it anything that is rewarding that you get is a game of chance. And obviously, we saw the scheme from Cash Token Africa, and we felt that this is something that we need to look into more and even elevate it to where we feel that it can be a national program rather than where they've seen it as just within each businesses. But we felt that we could elevate it even more to touch lives. And coincidentally, this was years back, and we all know the situation of the country right now. So there's no better time for this scheme to come into play, because it's a win-win situation for everybody. And just to elevate back to what he was trying to explain, it's like what we see outside the shores of Nigeria, more developed nations, where they give you rewards, for participating in certain things. I can give you an example, even the airline industry, where you have travel miles for every time you travel with them.
Yes.
And then when you get to a certain level, you can even use those miles that you've accumulated to travel, to buy a ticket, to fill it without you paying cash anymore. So it's more or less the same.
The question people will probably ask is that, again, this is a game of chance. The more you buy, the more your reward, and there's even a draw. People want to know, how is this different from the usual gambling?
Well, they're different. This one, you participate because it's what you have to do anyway. You have to buy stuff. Everybody needs to buy something.
you need to buy, he's been going on about airtime, but it's not only airtime, you need to even buy food, even the fast food restaurants, the likes of Kentucky or whatever, you have to buy, and they're part of it. Every single businesses in this nation will be participating in it, and they'll be the agents on behalf of the government because they are part and parcel of this. So it's a no-brainer to me, and I think this is something that will even outlive most of us, and we've done it. We've looked at it very well.
I was wondering what people will do with the token they get.
Okay.
You understand? If you're given the token, what does it amount to, and what can you do with it?
So when you get you get an SMS, so you have gone to
Chicken Republic, for example, right? You have bought food, and they've told you that you spend up to 2,000 and you're going to get one national reward. You will get an SMS. Every Nigerian has a phone.
Yes.
So you don't need any registration.
Okay.
You just need your phone number.
Okay.
That's simple enough. Every phone in Nigeria has a name. Every phone is registered. So we already know who you are. Because NLRC wants to know who is this Nigerian. So we know who you are in the first place.
Okay.
They're very careful about that. That's one. Instantly, you will receive an amount in your national reward wallet.
Okay.
Instantly. That means nobody loses. You must get. So you're not gambling. You only made a purchase. You didn't buy a lottery ticket.
Okay.
There are two. So you get a ticket into the weekly consumer draw. So it's a consumer draw. It's not a gambling draw. Now,
but that draw.
Yes.
There are chances. Are you likely to also get, something from the draw?
Of course. So today we have millions of Nigerians have already benefited. Even the private sector one before NLRC say, hey, we need to do a lot more for Nigerians now. It is that Nigerians are already benefiting so much. We have a woman from Shagamu who won 10 million naira. What did she do with the money? This is also able to
10
create
million.
10 million naira. There are several of them. There are several of them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say, but maybe perhaps because MTN has believed very much more early in the day. Glow is on the beat right now. In fact, Glow is doing a lot now to ensure that they start to participate. Of course, they are seeing Mr. Wajara, they can smell the national reward coming. So they are back fully on the beat. Their chairman had to say, hey, Glow needs to be at the forefront of touching Nigerian life.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to find out from Mr. Gbajabiamila.
Yes.
You are part of government.
Yes.
How far-reaching is this in terms of what this government wants to achieve by poverty alleviation and bringing succor to the downtrodden, the less privileged?
Absolutely, which I had mentioned briefly earlier in my statement. This is part of, like I said, years ago, one did envisage the situation of the country. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as part of his 8-point agenda, is to elevate poverty, employment, and this falls right into that framework of what the government is trying to achieve. And I don't want to use the word, I don't like to use the word gambling in what I do in this industry. I call it gaming. And it's also an entertainment, which comes to being a win-win situation for everybody. There's no loser in this particular scheme. Just like even in the core lottery and sports betting industry, there's no loser, because everybody that participates is contributing, whether you win, when they do the draw, you've won something, or whether your team wins in like a sports betting match. Every stake that you contribute into that game, whether you win or not, you're still a winner because you are contributing to what we call good causes. And these good causes are part of what the government uses for the economy. It could be for education. We contribute towards education. We contribute towards health. During the COVID period, we've done that through our sister agency, the National Lottery Trust Fund. And we also contribute to sports development. And anywhere Mr. President, according to our acts, we should use the funds for. So this is a social intervention as well for government.
We just have to quickly ask this last question. I think we have just less than 60 seconds to go. And, you know, sustenance, it's a big question mark for every initiative, you know, especially one that, you know, touch the people. So what are the plans of the Commission to sustain this?
Plans, we've seen that this is a sustainable scheme. Like I said, this will outlive all of us because we've taken time to study this. We've given out framework guidelines that they have to follow. And we're also doing this not in isolation. We're doing this in conjunction with FRS and also the Ministry of Finance.
Oh, beautiful.
You know, so we have the government backing. And very soon, this will be a policy that we're looking at.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lanre Gbajabiamila, Director General, National Lottery Regulatory Commission, NLRC. We'd like to thank you. Sorry, we do not have much time to really discuss more, but we thank you for the enlightenment of the same.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Let me also appreciate Dr. Lai Labode, CEO, Cash Token Rewards Africa. We thank you, and we look forward to, Victor and I, we look forward to being recipients or beneficiaries.
Yes. Let me also quickly add that this is the first time anywhere in Africa where you have a national reward. So we must commend Mr. Gbajabiamila and this government.
And commend you too.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. But this is where we have to leave it on Good Morning Nigeria. It's been a pleasure hosting the two topics and the gentlemen in the house. I'm Victor Azo, wishing you all a great day ahead. Claire.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Don't forget, always be a good Nigerian, always patronize Nigeria, and we'll see you tomorrow morning on another edition. From all of us here, have a great day.